Welcome to this writing tutorial, which today is going to look at how to write an introduction for your academic essays. I'm aiming this at my Year 9 and my Year 10 class. And in this tutorial, I'm going to suggest one way that you can structure an introduction. There is no hard and fast rules about what you should include in an introduction. It's pretty much each teacher's preference, but I'm going to show you the way I like students to structure an intro. I'm going to show you an example. I'm going to show you two examples actually, one relating to an inspector calls for my Year 10s and one for poetry for my Year 9s. And then I'm going to finish with some common errors that I see students making when writing an introduction that hopefully you can avoid. Okay, just a quick note about introductions then. Intros are good practice in academic essays, but you do need to bear in mind that not all of the exam questions require you to write an intro. So make sure you know when you should just be answering a question in paragraphs and when you should be formalizing your ideas in an essay structure that might require an intro. Okay, so the first thing I want to tell you about writing an intro is that you have to fully understand the question that's being asked. I'm going to use these two examples. The first one, how does the writer present ideas about gender in Act 1 of an Inspector Calls? And for my Year 9s, explore how the writer presents ideas about loss in 1 Art. Okay, so the first thing I think you should do is give a brief overview. When I say give a brief overview, I mean of the text that's being studied. So for example, in our Inspector Calls question, we're being asked to focus on Act 1. Now, what I don't want you to do is write a whole summary of Act 1, but try and link the idea of gender and why that is important to Act 1 in your summary. For poetry, it's slightly different. We can give a general overview of what the poem is about to show that we understand what it is we've read. So here's how it might look. The top one is an Inspector Calls. Differences in gender are very quickly established in Act 1 of an Inspector Calls to show how difficult it was for a working class girl like Eva Smith to survive on her own. And then for the poetry, loss is explored in 1 Art through reference to increasingly significant items, concepts, people belonging to the speaker. So you can see this is a really very brief overview of the significance of a particular area of the text or a quick overview of what the poem is about. Secondly, you then need to go on and explore the subject or the theme or the focus of the essay. And again, you need to know about the essay question to be able to identify the theme. I've done that in red here. So our Inspector Calls essay is about gender and our poetry essay is about loss. What I want to do for the examiner is show that I understand the importance of these themes. And here's how I've done it. This was a significant time in terms of gender roles, as the 2 world wars had meant women had to take on the role of males who had left to fight in the war, forcing people to reassess the stereotype of them being the weaker sex. And then in the poetry, I've written, loss is presented much differently in this poem to how it is usually presented in literature, suggesting it is something to be embraced rather than feared. So again, just a very brief 1-sentence summary of the significance of, this time, the theme. Finally, and I think most importantly, what I like to see in an introduction is the question being answered. I want some indication of what is going to be discussed in the rest of the essay. So for this part, we're looking for you to answer this section in red, the how does the writer present part. Explore how the writer presents. And the how part being asked of you here is the methods or the techniques used to present those ideas. I often use the phrase in a nutshell to explain to students what I want here. What I mean by that is, if you had to answer this essay question in 1 or 2 lines, what would you say? What are the key features, techniques that the writer uses to present these ideas? And here's my examples. Priestley uses emotive language, long speeches by the males, and adherence to social codes to present women as subservient to males. And then for the poetry, Bishop uses repetition, personal pronouns, and detached language to present a fearless attitude towards loss. I know that this student should now go on to structure their essay in this way. I want a paragraph about emotive language, a paragraph about long speeches, and then a paragraph about adherence to social codes. And then same with the poetry. I want to see a point about repetition, personal pronouns, and detached language. This is really good practice because it signifies what is then going to happen in the rest of the essay. I've collated all of those separate parts of the introduction and put them together in what I think would be a fair, decent introduction for each task. I'm not going to read it out. If you want to have a look at this, press pause now. And the same task repeated for the poetry essay. Press pause now if you want to read that. Okay, so I'm going to end with what I see are some common errors made by students when attempting to write introductions. First and foremost, this is not a place to dump all the information you know about the text or the writer. Keep it relevant. Don't just tell us every single thing you know about Inspector Calls or J.B. Priestley in the hope that it will give you some points, because it won't. This number 2 here is more of a personal pet peeve. I hate the phrase in this essay, I am going to. We're reading the essay, so you don't need to tell us what you're going to do. You just need to do it. So make no reference to what you're going to do. Just tell us. And finally, not focusing on the essay question. So giving information or referring to techniques or methods that the writer uses to present a theme when you don't actually then go on to explore them in your body essay. So that was a really quick whistle-stop tour of introductions. As I said, there's many ways you can go about structuring an intro. There's other things that you can include that are good practice. But for now, just as we're getting used to writing academic essays, this is what I would like you to put into your introductions. As with my other tutorials, I'm sure after 1, 2, or 3 attempts at this, it will become second nature and you won't require this video again. Good luck with your writing.